Welcome to Destination Wedding Planning Made Easy, where your team at Destination Weddings Expert talks about all things weddings. Join us as we talk about tips, tricks, and those all too easy pitfalls to avoid when planning your big day. Okay, hello and welcome to Destination Wedding Planning Made Easy. I am your host, Mario Lopez. You are joined here today by the Destination Weddings Expert team. So we've got Nikki Sanders. Nikki is Director of Customer Service and Reservation Management. We've got Prissy Powell, one of our Destination Weddings experts and definitely Travel Wanderlust Pro. And then we've got Jody, the newest member to our team, who also helps us with reservations as we go. We want to thank you so much for joining us today and tuning in. So I guess first things first, we want to go into what should you expect from this podcast, right? Like, why are you listening? So first things first, it's to get to know us, get to know the Destination Weddings Expert team. We want you to be comfortable speaking to us, comfortable reaching out to us. And this is kind of our best way to do that, to get our personalities out there and get to see what it looks like behind the scenes at Destination Weddings Expert. Then we also want you to learn how to plan your destination wedding the easy way, right? There's a lot of ways to go about this. There's a lot of information out there and it can be overwhelming at times. So we want to make sure that you have all the information there and easily accessible so that you can feel comfortable choosing an expert to move forward with your destination wedding. We want you to be able to trust the process and trust the experts. And so this podcast is going to be all about some of that information that's out there, how to debunk some of the information that probably isn't true or maybe isn't the most accurate that it can be. And then we want you to be able to avoid the pitfalls that come with planning. There's a lot of ways to, do this the easy way. And there's also a lot of ways that the planning can kind of go sideways depending on, how you approach some of these things or some of the decisions that you make or some of the people that you involve in your planning process. Right? We will touch on a lot of that as we go. We've seen it all so over the years. And so this is just kind of our easiest way to share that out with you. And then lastly, just kind of our general debauchery. I think the best thing about the Destination Weddings Expert team is that we are very good at what we do. We have fun at doing what we do. We also don't take ourselves too seriously, right? We have a good time while we're doing it. We have a good time with our couples and we have a great time, speaking with the guests. So hopefully a little bit of that comes through here in the podcast. All right. So we were talking about kind of the best topics to kick off the podcast this year. And I think one of the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest one to talk about, the one that I think is most important is why do we want to do a destination wedding, right? There's so many options out there for weddings and where you can go and what you can do, but why is this the best fit for your group, right? So I think the first point in all of this is just to talk a little bit towards your wanderlust, right? If you're a couple that's considering a destination wedding, wanderlust is probably up on your list of things, that are important to you. Adventure is probably important to you. Seeing new cities and new destinations and having new experiences. And a destination wedding is able to provide that for you, right? So you guys, I think the first thing I want to talk about is just that wanderlust and kind of what a destination wedding does to satisfy that. Percy, I know a lot of your couples are super adventurous and they like to get out there and see new things. How does a destination wedding help them do that?
I think it's a gift that they're giving their family. Like, if you love to travel, you want the people closest to you to experience that. So you're sharing that wanderlust with your friends, with your grandma. So it's just bringing them along for that journey and showing them your why. Like, this is why I'm gone every weekend or why I'm gone every holiday because, it's a lot of world out here.
There is. That's absolutely. And then, so kind of to that point, to the friends and family point, Nikki, can you speak a little bit towards the memories and, why, the entire picture of the destination wedding week instead of it just being, a couple days?
One of the things that always sticks with me is one of our brides and grooms were like, they both had big families and they're basically, we could just not go to another wedding at XYZ. Like, We wanted something different. We needed something different. And they wanted their friends and families too to also have that something different with them. You get to spend more time with everyone. The wedding couple gets to spend, they're not just doing one circle around that, you know, conference room, ballroom, you know, venue. Hi, thank you for coming. Hey, thank you for coming. You're going to see them for 3 days, usually at least. And sometimes, you know, extended family stays a little longer to spend more time together. And then the families get to meet and
Mhm.
spend the time together and build connections as well. So, you know, a lot of people want something a little bit different, and we know where to find it. So, and
Mhm.
we know what also too your families are going to like
Right.
as well.
Mhm.
Sometimes, you know, younger people might be like, "Yeah, I love that," but we know what goes all the way across. And
Mhm.
Auntie will be happy. Uncle Tony, hey, he knows me. Thrilled. So we got you there.
I think one of the, one of the most interesting points that you brought up when we were talking about this episode is about the destination wedding being a neutral ground for families, right? It's really important. A lot of these guests are meeting each other for the first time.
Mhm.
Maybe your parents have met each other, maybe even your siblings have met each other, but auntie,
You know.
uncle, the cousins, grandma and grandpa, they haven't met everyone. So this is a really safe space for everyone to come together in one area. You're on neutral ground. You're not going to, one side of the family for dinner and you don't know what to bring and you don't know how to act. And you're
And this side's not having to do all the work while that side shows up.
Yes.
And we don't know what she's gonna do. And someone came in empty-handed, you know, this it's done. It's ours. We don't have solved.
yeah.
I think that's really important as well when one side of the family is from the East Coast, the other side is from the West Coast. You don't want resentment, for having to travel to one coast. It's like everybody's going to a neutral playing field.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, this kind of speaks to a little bit of our consultation process. And we'll go through the full consultation, what that looks like on another episode. But a couple of the questions that we ask in there, when we're asking questions on those consults, it's, first of all, yes, we want to get to know you. We want to get to know your story. We want to hear your vision and what that looks like. But it's also a way for us to qualify your group so that we can learn where we should be placing you. If you want, a 4 a.m. nightclub, there's some
Mhm.
resorts we're not going to put you at because they might not have, any nightlife at all. Or, that's maybe we've been to the club and it's not that great. And,
Mhm.
that's we want to make sure that we're placing you in the right place. Or on the opposite end, it's if you have a family that is going to be, by the pool, reading a book, maybe dipping down into the swim up bar, but probably not going crazy all night long. We're not going to put you at one of those party resorts that are going to be up all night. You're going to be hearing music. We're going to make sure that we put you at a place that's nice and serene and chill. So
Mhm.
it's, yeah. So, I think some of those qualifying questions that we ask in the consultation are so important when we're talking about the guest experience and kind of what that all looks like as a whole and what the family can expect when they arrive.
Those are the nuances, like, okay, my family does not want adventuresome food, right? Okay, no problem. Or we're foodies and we want to eat well.
Mhm.
We have that too. My kids don't want to go in the ocean, but they want to be in the pool all
Mhm.
the time.
Mhm.
Know that. Yep. There's, but these are the vacations, the gifts that you can give to your family and friends that they didn't know they needed.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think, that so we have a policy at Destination Weddings Expert where we say we go so you know. And I know it sounds like the glamorous part of our life. We get to travel the world and check out these hotels and drink the drinks and eat the food. But again, there's a second purpose to that, right? It's we want to understand what those things are. We want to know if you come to us and you say, hey, my family are foodies. They love to eat. They need delicious food. We don't really care about a whole lot else, but that food needs to be on point. I immediately have a list of resorts that I'm going to say, okay, I know, I'm going to send
Mhm.
you to Ishkaret, right? Where their food is amazing and they have, it's authentic. They got the clay pots that they're, cooking over fire. And, they've got the marketplace on Sunday where you get to go and, kind of pick up your own stuff and whatnot. that's that's, I think, one of the most important things that you can find in a travel advisor is someone who has been to the property, someone who's experienced it. They know if the beds are comfortable, they know if the rooms are noisy. It's one thing to go and like do a day site tour and check it out. Yeah, that's important that we do that as well. But we also go and we stay at the hotel. We experience it ourselves. It's important to have that, so you have that firsthand experience, firsthand knowledge when we're speaking to our couples about what that experience looks like.
Receipts, we call those receipts.
We got them.
Receipts, yes.
We got them.
Receipts of all the food. I'm wearing stretchy pants today because of the receipts. So
Yeah.
Well, and Jody and I will tell you if stuff is mom clean.
Yeah,
It's mom clean. Like
that's right.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most fun things about this team is we have a diverse culture in here, right? We all come from different backgrounds, we all come from different areas. Our family units all look different, and so we bring a unique perspective to each one of these properties. That's when I'm experiencing it different than Nikki and Jody. I'm experiencing it different than Prissy. And so it's great that we're all able to collaborate and talk about that and bring a overarching perspective to those resort choices when we're presenting them to our couples.
And that's a great point too, because when we all do agree that something is fantastic,
we know we got a winner.
We covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah.
If we all agree we would not do that again, trust us.
They do exist.
Trust us.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to like what I was saying before about trust the process. It's if you have an experienced travel advisor that's out there and they're you're speaking to them about what you want the experience to be and what you believe it should be. I know that there's, again, all of that information on the internet, all that information on TikTok, it's Instagram, where you're getting fed a version of the story or someone else's perspective on the property. Maybe that person was looking exactly for that, but it's when we can give an overarching view of what that property experience is like, and especially if we've sent groups there before, that's weddings there before, we know what the planning experience looks like, we know what the on-site experience is going to be for your guests, we're able to speak directly to that. And I think our team does a great job of being pretty frank about what some of those experiences are. We have resorts that are on, we won't mention any names, but we have some resorts that are on our do not sell list. We just won't do it. We would rather refer you out to someone else if you're insistent on going, to certain properties, because we know that the on-site experience isn't going to be great, and we don't want you listening to your guests complaining about the room not being set up right, or not having hot water, or it's things like that or bad food experiences. There's a lot of different bad food experiences you can have, right? But we want to make sure that we're at least being as proactive as possible on those things so that you can understand what that experience is going to look like. We wouldn't recommend a resort that we think does not provide the same experience that you get when you work with us. Yeah. So, okay, Jody, as the newest member to our team, that you had brought up a really good point earlier when we were talking about this episode about weather.
Yes.
So just talk to us a little bit about,
Tell us where you live, Jody.
Oh boy. Coming to you from Midwest, USA, when couples start looking at wedding venues, you want to be outside, we're very limited, maybe 3 or 4 months of potentially nice weather to be outside, but a destination wedding, that opens up the whole calendar. So you're not as limited. To me, that's the most appealing part, is the weather. Just if you can get me out of here, I'm going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's with these properties, especially when we start talking room block contracts and what some of the benefits are in that room block contract. There is a lot of properties that are out there that are going to call out high season, mid season, and low season. And what Jody's speaking to right there is high season. January, February, March. First of all, it's the hardest months to be able to get a date that'll work. It's also because it's really cold and gloomy in the Midwest and in the Northeast, and there's going to be a lot of your guests that are going to want to escape at that time. Also, on the opposite side of things, you're also going to want to work with someone who is going to recommend months that are going to be good in destination, right?
Right.
If you're in the Caribbean and you're looking at August, September, October, it's first of all, it is hot. Just the
The
wall
rates
of
are
humidity.
lower and your kids might be out of school in some of those, so that's another thing.
Yep. Yeah.
More
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah. And then you also have to consider hurricane season, right?
Yeah.
You need to make sure that where you're going, that you have a plan B for if a storm hits. Okay, so then kind of off of the weather experience a little bit. Before we move on to budget, because that's I think what a lot of people think of when they think destination wedding. Before we move there, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about the multi-day experience, right?
Mhm.
So that's Nikki, you had touched on a little bit earlier, kind of, that it's a wedding week, that there's memories to be made, but there's also a structure that comes along with that. And if you're working with the right wedding consultant, you're able to understand what that structure looks like, best practices to do those, and kind of how to approach that planning process. So typically when you have a destination wedding, one of the first events that you're going to have is the welcome party, right? That's, everyone's getting into town. Hopefully they've gotten in the day before. If not, hopefully they got in earlier in that day. But we usually plan a welcome party so that everyone can get together, treat it as a little icebreaker. I always recommend when I'm going through planning with our couples, that's the welcome event, as much as you always want to give your guests a great experience, they are on a tropical resort. There is beautiful scenery all around. There is no need to go through the roof with decor and entertainment on that welcome event night, right? It's keep it simple. I actually even recommend for our couples that really want to try and just spend as little as possible on that welcome event, do it before sunset.
Yeah.
If you do it before sunset, you don't have to pay for the string lighting, which lighting, for anyone out there that hasn't gone through destination wedding planning yet, lighting is shockingly expensive. Every resort. It's when you see that the line item on your invoice for what that lighting is, it's like, it's
Why? I have Christmas lights. Can I bring them and put them up myself?
exactly.
They won't let you.
No.
Just
know.
keep the welcome party short and sweet, just like Sabrina Carpenter.
There, yeah.
There, and you're done.
Exactly. It's it's that welcome event should just be an icebreaker, an hour, maybe two max, if you do that, and then send everyone off to get some dinner and let them enjoy the resort a little bit. Yeah. And then from there, the next day typically is going to be the wedding day, right? So you want to make sure that you have a timeline put together from the second that you wake up until you hit the reception. Obviously, once the reception comes, everything's already in motion. You're good to go from there. But it's what does hair and makeup look like? What does when does photography start? When is the resort going to transfer you over to your ceremony? You have your ceremony. How long does it last? Typically, in the resort, it's going to be a symbolic ceremony that's short, 20 minutes, 30 minutes maximum, right? And then you hit the happy hour, maybe some entertainment at a happy hour and some cocktails to keep everyone that's lubricated while while you're off taking your pictures and photos with the family, right? And then reception. And the reception, of course, big party, dinner, entertainment, things like that. That is where you really want to focus your budget and make sure that the decor is beautiful, the entertainment is fun, everyone has an opportunity to have a great time. But those two pieces are probably the most popular. And then usually we have some sort of a lot of couples do some sort of day after, like wind down event. It's, hey, we had the wedding, now we just want to relax. I think one of the most popular ones that we request that we get is going to be the catamaran, the sunset catamaran. If you do the catamaran the following day, I always recommend doing the sunset catamaran. It's nobody wants to wake up at 7 a.m. to get on a transfer the day after a wedding and make their way onto a boat where they're going to get seasick, right? It's that day after event, you want to make sure it's later in the day, let people relax, try not to overschedule, a bunch of events for them to be at every day. You really want them to be able to be there, enjoy the resort, enjoy their vacation, and then celebrate, you and your significant other.
Sounds good.
Okay, so then all of that, speaking of multi-day experiences and events and what that all looks like, right? That comes to budget. So I think a lot of people, when they're looking at, should they do a domestic wedding, should they do a destination wedding, there's so much information out there, and most of that information out there is not correct, or it doesn't have all the facts included so you understand how they got there, right?
It's misleading.
It's misleading. Yeah. It's a lot of people think that when you do a destination wedding, I think one of the worst misconceptions is that it's free food, free drinks the entire time, right? That's not the case. Just because you're at an all-inclusive resort doesn't mean that you're going to get free food and drinks. It's as soon as you privatize event, as soon as you say, hey, I need a staff of waiters, I need people to set up food stations, there's a cost, right? Usually it's a per head cost that's in there, but it's definitely something that we've heard before, right? We've heard, I want a free wedding. That's and then you need to set your expectation properly on what you want the experience to be, how many people that you're going to have, how long the events are going to go, how grand the entertainment's going to be, right? So we always like to talk about kind of this average, per head cost of what the wedding is going to cost. So this isn't necessarily the rooms and what the room block is going to cost. This is just for the wedding events. Typically, Prissy, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but it's typically we land about $250 to $350 per head for a destination wedding, right?
That's pretty accurate. With smart choices, good decisions, we can kind of get that a little bit lower, but that's a good starting point for you to look at the total budget.
Absolutely. So I did a little simple math kind of in my head before I shouldn't say in my head, that's a lie. I did it on a calculator before
iPhone calculator.
Right. Yeah. Before we jumped on the call. So if we look at a wedding, we want to try and be very budget conscious on this wedding. And, we're having 75 guests that are going to be there. If we try and stick to the lower end of that, $250, right? We're looking at about $19,000 for your wedding. Now, that I know, to some people might sound like a large ticket item, and it is. Don't get me wrong. That's a big chunk to try and take out of the savings to pay for a wedding. But compare that to a domestic wedding. It's just the food and beverage alone at the domestic wedding is going to be that bill, right? That doesn't include all your decor, all your lighting, all your entertainment. This is, when you're looking at that low end of that budget, I think that's pretty well representative of what we can do on the low end of that budget. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yep. And so it's when you speak to any whether you're speaking to destination weddings expert or you're speaking to another wedding planner, wedding consultant, you want to make sure that they are confident that they can keep you within the budget that you provide to them. Now, that's part of the reason that we have the consultation. Part of the reason that we go through that process is I want to hear what your expectations are. I do not want you to sign on with us and then get upset when I can't get you into a certain price point, right? So we want to make sure that we're setting those expectations properly. We're setting them up front, and we know what to expect in there. I think one of the biggest pitfalls that people fall into is going on to Pinterest and finding the perfect Pinterest wedding, right? Not saying that you shouldn't do it. Go on to Pinterest, get inspiration, see what you want your wedding to look like. But you also have to understand that comes with a price tag. So what I always like to advise our couples is, hey, send me those Pinterest boards, send me the inspiration. I do want to see what you expect because we want to make sure that we're hitting that. But then know that when we send that off to floral or we send that off to decor, they're going to come back with this number that's like this, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be, that's where our value really comes in on the planning side is then, okay, let's talk about, maybe we can use some different flowers. Maybe flowers that are more local to the area. They're not quite as expensive. Maybe we can use less flowers. Maybe we can fill it with, some greenery. By the way, baby's breath is not, in the States, that's an easy way to fill a floral arrangement. It's in Mexico and
you can't do it with monstera leaves and baby's breath. It's still going to cost you flower money.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a baby budget.
No.
Your guests don't know what you're not choosing. They didn't see the whole catalog. So they don't know that you didn't choose the goblet that looked like this that you really like, but it added too much cost. They don't know that goblet. They didn't see that goblet.
And I don't think they really care. What's the saying? Those who matter don't mind. Those who mind don't matter. I think like we need to have that rationale when we're thinking about the guests. They want the experience. They're there to support you. They don't really care about which chair you select.
Mhm.
No, and even if they take a picture of your tablescape, they might delete it later.
Or they're like me, they have 60,000 of them that they do nothing with. So
Yeah, I don't remember. Like, what was that for?
whose wedding was this? Like, so yeah, it's not the be all end all. I think focusing on the experience, making smart decisions, you can have a lot of fun, you can have a great event. But let the housewives have their events because many of us don't have housewife budgets.
No,
Me
and you know what? We know now from the experience what really resonates.
Where to spend.
Resonates with the groups, with their guests. You know, it's not a votive candle. It might be the Oro Loca, you know, or when somebody, you know, that violinist brought tears to their eyes. You know, not the extra here, the extra there. It's the certain things that you want them to go home and think about and remember. And it's not going to be the extra money you spent probably on decor. Like, and we do know because we've seen them over and over, the pictures over and over, and the choices that our groups have made over and over. What's a lot of bang for the buck? And which location needs what? And which location needs more? Which location needs less? Which venue is going to work better with the amount of people? Sometimes you know, on Pinterest and in the groups, people see one thing and they get really attached to that one idea. And we understand where flexibility can take you. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that so my husband Will and I, we got married at El Dorado Royale in Riviera Maya, and it was an amazing, amazing experience. But I think one of the most fun things that we did that day is we spent a good amount of money on the entertainment in the cocktail hour. Because that's, you know, in the cocktail hour, the guests are there, we're off taking pictures, you know, getting ready for the reception, and they're there just kind of having some drinks, right? We did the beer donkey. So the beer donkey came in, he was carrying the beers, everyone's getting, you know, pictures taken with them. That was a blast. And then we also did a mariachi band during that time. So everyone got in dancing in the sand, having a great time. They loved it. And then it was just standard entertainment for the reception. We've got, you know, the DJ in there that's you know, playing music and whatnot, but that kept everyone going all night long. It was a blast.
it fills that space. The transition space. Like, you don't want it to lull too much. And everyone might be in their emotions from seeing the people, and then, you know, they get kind of, but you need to pick it up. But you need to pick it up again for the fun, because here goes the reception, and we want everyone to enjoy. So
absolutely,
there's different choices. We have ideas.
We have lots of ideas.
Guaranteed donkey was not on anybody's list coming into this. Now it is.
I felt so bad. I had a couple who got married in DR, and all we talked about during the consultation was
the beer donkey.
My beer donkey, and he wanted it so bad. He was begging for it. And the property wouldn't, the particular property that we ended up choosing, they didn't allow it.
But you know, at one of our favorite resorts, there's always that little donkey out by the
donkey.
church. Always. We all know that donkey. He's very sweet.
Makes for a good backdrop for photos too.
It does.
Absolutely. And people, that's what people like, and it gets them through the little transition from the one emotion thing to the other emotion thing. Let's like, hey, change the mood. Let's go.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think today, ladies, we are going to wrap up. I want to thank you so much for joining me today in our conversation about why destination weddings. We have so many topics and so many things that we want to talk about, guys. So we will be back just to kind of give you some of that insider information on how to plan your destination wedding the easy way. We'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us. Want to learn more or ready to schedule your complimentary consultation? Follow us on Instagram at Destination Weddings Expert or visit our website at destinationweddingsexpert.com.